Hi, Yannik. Thank you so much for helping my project. Could you say a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, my name is Yannik. I'm from Germany. I currently live in northern Germany near the sea. I originally started working as a mechatronic and later switched the industry completely and now work as a paramedic. But I'm still very much interested in space, so yeah,
Well, maybe at some point we'll have mechatronic paramedics and you'll be have the perfect background.
hopefully, maybe on Mars one day, who knows?
Absolutely. Yeah. So talking about Mars, maybe we'll talk a little bit about something closer. Did you know that NASA is planning to send astronauts back to the moon?
Yes, yes, I did know that.
And when and how did you find out?
Um, I would say I first heard about it at the very end of the shuttle progress program. Um, I was about 10 years old or 12 years old or something when the shuttle program ended. And I didn't speak much English back then, so all the news would have to be translated, or ask my father about it, who translated something for me. And I only read about this successor of the shuttle program in very small doses, like the Constellation program, and then that was canceled, and there was nothing for a while. And over the years, I kind of lost interest again in space. And during the rise of commercial crew programs like Dragon, Starliner, more or less replacing, I guess is the wrong word, but succeeding the shuttle, I found my way back to space. And well, I guess I first heard about the Artemis program in 2018, then around that time, I guess.
That's pretty awesome. And a friend of mine, he works at Lockheed Martin, and
Mhm.
he ended up spending a few years in Germany
Ah,
with the European Space Agency working on the service module for Orion. I
oh,
was
that's
wondering,
awesome.
how familiar you were with sort of Germany's contribution to this next trip to the moon.
Well, I actually have a good friend who lives in Bremen, where the many parts from Airbus from the European Service Module are built. It's actually not that far of a car ride from where I live. I haven't been there yet. It's still on my to-do list. And I only knew, I didn't know much about it until very recently when a German YouTuber did some very detailed breakdown where which parts of this European service module are actually built, like Germany or Italy, that I actually found out it was kind of close nearby, so to speak.
Yeah, that's well, I'm kind of interested in the people that you interact with and their awareness of us going back to the moon here in the United States. And then with these interviews, as I've traveled, I would say about 80% of people have no clue that we're going back to the moon. And I was wondering if that was also true in your world or if it was higher or lower.
I think 80% is a realistic guess. I feel like it's maybe a bit higher actually in Germany since we don't talk much about space exploration at all. Like, I don't know how it's in the US or in North America in general, but when the crew mission launches, like Crew 6, for example, in the next couple of hours, actually, we don't hear nothing about that. Like there is not a spark of news on any news platform or television or somewhere. Like if you are not interested in this in the first place, you don't hear about it at all. And I think that's a general problem with European spaceflight or spaceflight in general all around the world, that there isn't enough talk about it. We don't uh, announce missions far enough or don't interview astronauts on TV or something like that. I think that's one of the reasons why awareness that we are actually going back to the moon is so low. We don't talk about it enough, or we don't talk about it with the right audience or on the right channels. Like who knows, maybe get an astronaut on a late night TV show or something, or let him moderate the news or something like that. I don't know, but there isn't much done it all, and I think we could do very much better to help get that number larger.
I've, I've been thinking about people's interest in space versus like sports and other things. And I've been trying to figure out why sports are so entertaining and space largely is not perceived that way. And I have a theory that people are interested in events that have a degree of uncertainty in them. Like they like you don't know which way it's going to go. It could go this way, but sometimes it goes the other way, you know.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah,
but with the space program, we tried to squeeze out all that uncertainty. And in the process of doing that, uh, I think maybe we also, uh, for a lot of people, make it completely uninteresting.
yeah. I think a big part of it is competitiveness. Like in the 60s and 70s, with the Soviet Union as a um, on the tails, so to speak, of Apollo, like they almost got us. You know what I mean? Like it was close. That sort of excitement, I don't want to say it's gone because the Chinese are very much pursuing space goals as well. But I think right now there isn't much of a um, I don't want to say adversary, that sounds so aggressive, but a different party, so to speak. Like the Chinese are going to space and they are going to go to the moon one day. I very much believe that, but I don't think they are close enough right now that there is a immediate danger or immediate sense of urgency that the people feel. Like, for example, those balloons over North America in the last weeks, I've heard so much about those few balloons. Imagine what would be in the news for weeks if China announced we are going to send a man to the moon in 2026 or something like that. Like there would be massive public outcries and support for space would be immense because of course you now need to beat China. It's a race again. Yeah, the space race 2.0 or the next part or whatever you want to call it is then back. And I think that's a lot of what's missing right now. So I don't view China as the adversary. I think it's actually beneficial to spaceflight in general that there are now two parties that try to one up each other again, like back in the good old days, so to speak. I'm very much excited for that. Yeah.
That's an interesting perspective, and I I hope that um, China's space activities create a positive response in the rest of the world's space activities. But I have brought this up with some people. I'm like, hey, China's going to the moon. What do you think about that? And for some people, they're like, well, we've already been there, so they're just catching up. Um, and so I guess, and then with like the space station, they're like, oh, well, we have the International Space Station, so much bigger, and all this other good stuff. So I think um, for a lot of people, even if they went to the moon, um, they really wouldn't see it as being behind, as being something they need to catch up for. And but I mean, what's your take on that?
I mean, I think a big part of that, of course, is being first. Like, of course, the US landed like 50 years ago already, but no astronaut stayed longer on the surface than a couple of days. Like the longest Apollo mission surface duration was, I think, 5 days or something like that. Was limited by some component ages and life support systems and fuel cells and the service module and whatnot. Like there was not a long duration surface activity right now. What if China were to actually build some sort of surface base? In the very early days of spaceflight, the idea of Sputnik circling around the Earth like a piece of communist tech above the heads of everybody else was terrifying because no one could get there. They could do whatever the hell they want up there. No one could change it. What if the Chinese were to actually build a base or some sort of base camp on the moon? That's not something that has done before, ever done before. And I think that is their plan right now. I'm not 100% certain on that because it feels like it changes a lot. Like their plans are not really set in stone, which is another sign that they are not that far along, like Artemis. But when they, if they were to actually beat the US right now in the second moon race, I don't think it would be that much of a drama. Like surely you would try to get back at them, but I think a much more important step is actually having crews stationed on the surface. Like imagine crew rotations instead of to the ISS on the moon surface. Like every 3 months or something, the crew gets circled back. Like who has more manpower on the moon, who can produce more fuel on the moon, and like a sort of dueling, for lack of better word, kind of similar to something we've seen in For All Mankind. I don't know if you've seen the show with the Soviets and the Americans on the moon. Maybe not so hostile, but same in public effect. Like I think the support for the space program would really benefit from something like that.
Yeah, I was just about to mention that show to you because it's really interesting. You need to be careful that you know your history before watching it because you can really end up with a lot of bad, interesting ideas afterwards.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, what do you think about us going back to the moon?
I think it's about damn time, to be perfectly honest. Like, um, it makes sense that the capability to bring people to the moon was not prevailed. Like the step from Apollo to shuttle was a logical one. We went there, we got there. Now we try to stay in space. We want to build something that is maintainable economically and from a hardware side that can actually keep us in space. If the shuttle succeeded in this or not is up to debate, but I think the technology, like the knowledge, how do we build those kind of engines, how we do long time mission durations in deep space, this knowledge shouldn't have been lost in the first place. But it's really, really important that now we regain it. And I'm not the biggest supporter of the SLS program from a technical side, but what it does is it enables lots of congressional districts to have jobs on this rocket, which in turn strengthens the support for it. And yeah, like I said, I think it's about damn time someone goes back. It's been too long, and this is the way to go. And I think it's got the best chances of actually succeeding, or more chances of actually succeeding than, for example, the Constellation program. Like this attempt right now seems to be the most practical, I would say.
I know. I mean, we successfully launched Artemis 1, the uncrewed test flight. Artemis 2 hardware, I think, is pretty much all complete. It just needs to be assembled.
Yeah,
And, the Artemis 2 crew needs to be uh, announced.
soon, hopefully.
Yes. And, it's going to have the first non-American to actually go around the moon.
Yeah,
Um, and the European Space Agency already has 3 seats allocated to them at some point.
yeah.
Um, uh, what's your thoughts about, will one of them be a German?
Um, I gotta be 100% honest with you. I don't have the list of current active European astronauts in my head, but from my feelings, I think 2 or 3 out of them are actually Germans. And Europe doesn't have that much astronauts in general, so I think statistically speaking, there's a very high chance that within this decade, a German is going to travel at least around the moon, like go to the sphere of influence of the moon, which is way further than any European or non-American in general ever has gone before. This alone will be a massive achievement. But I'm actually very much curious if during Artemis 3, European will travel with an American to the surface. Because from my understanding right now, it's not 100% certain if a European will fly on Artemis 3 at all. And I think the mission layout currently is still that 2 astronauts remain on Orion and stay in lunar orbit, and only 2 go to the surface with the HLS. So I'm very much curious who will be the first non-American actually setting foot on the moon, and when will it happen? Will it be Artemis 3? Will it be 4? Will it be even later? Who knows? Will be very interesting to find out.
Now, how big of a difference is it for you for it to be a German astronaut versus a European astronaut that's not German?
That's an excellent question. Um, I don't think it actually makes that much of a difference for me personally. Like if it's Chris, oh my God, I don't want to butcher her name entirely, but the Italian astronaut, the female Italian astronaut, Chris, sorry, I can't pronounce it. I don't want to butcher it, but if she were to, example, be the first European to set foot on the moon, I would be very happy with that. I would also be happy for the Danish astronaut whose name I've also completely forgotten, because it would be a very, very big achievement for an otherwise relatively small country. So, of course, I would be happy if it's a German astronaut. Don't get me wrong, like I would be very much excited for that, and I would stand around for hours in conventions trying to get an interview for him or get a selfie with him or something. I would be absolutely down for that. But it's important for the European community, I think, to share those accomplishments. Like send a German, for example, on Artemis 2, and then Christiana Corvaretti. Sorry, I really can't pronounce her name. Maybe on Artemis 3 and someone later on Artemis 4. I think it's important to share those accomplishments. I mean, it's basically the accomplishment of another space industry, but to share these seats very, um, very fairly and very evenly distributed among each member state. That's more important than who actually goes on which mission, I think.
Um, and I'm just wondering what your view is of where all this is leading up to. So when you think about like the future of humanity in like 200 years, for example, what does it look like to you?
Well, I'm a big fan of The Expanse, the TV series. So I'm kind of hoping we get there one day, maybe with a little less weapons on our spaceships, but it would be cool nonetheless. I think 200 years from now, we will probably have some sort of moon base, probably more than one. I guess, like I always expect the microcosmos of the low Earth orbit to be an example for what will later happen to the moon. Like we first got a big government financed space station. Now we're getting a bunch of smaller ones. We first got a big government space plane. Now we're getting smaller privately built capsules. I imagine the moon will look in 200 years very much like a shopping center, for lack of a better word, like a lot of different smaller industries and firms and smaller nations, for example, have their own separate compartment or separate own base or working together on a joint one. And I think there will be a very, very active moon tourism in the next 200 years. Like we already see some sort of that with Dear Moon and other kind of missions. If SpaceX can somewhat cost efficiently build technology to actually bring people to the moon, I think it's only a matter of time before there will be a very, very, very long line of people willing to pay massive amounts of money to go to the moon. And I don't think it's going to take 200 years for that to happen, but I think in 200 years, there will be some sort of Disneyland or um, commercialized moon surface activity, perhaps even beyond that, maybe some sort of research station on Mars or even efforts to colonize it. I honestly don't think that people are going to colonize Mars anytime soon, as much as I would like it. I don't believe that's going to happen. But I think we're going to travel there. We're going to travel all over the solar system. And this is a very important step in that direction. Yeah.
So if you had an opportunity to take a trip to space, would you take it?
Yes.
How far would you go? Like one of these suborbital trips? Would you do like one of these free flying trips like Inspiration 4, go to the International Space Station, go to the moon? Would you immigrate to Mars? I mean, where would you go?
Um, like if it's completely free to choose, I would probably right now go to the International Space Station. In 10 years, maybe Mars. But what has to be kept in mind is the trip to Mars will not be beneficial to your health. Like you're not gonna feel age appropriate after that. Your bodies, your bones, your muscles, your entire nervous system, the very information of how your body is built within your cells themselves will be corrupted. Like your body does not benefit from long-term space travel. That all being said, I would still go to Mars if there was the opportunity at the end of or at the later part of my life. Like if I have already a family and kids, I would probably go there if they're adults and they can live without me in the worst case. But right now, like I feel I still have got some things left to do in my life, and I don't want to basically come back as someone who will never be able to run another marathon again, or um, can't go up a set of stairs without, you know, needing some oxygen at the top of it. Yeah,
Or even worse at the bottom.
yeah.
But so you've ran a marathon.
Well, most of it. I tried. Um, but it's still on my to-do list. Like I want to do it. I probably won't get to it this year, but I definitely want to do it soon. Like when I'm back in shape again, I definitely want to try it. Yeah.
I've only done half marathons, and I think I think two half marathons are enough for me.
Yeah, but honestly, once you get there, it's like only a matter of persistence to get to the full marathon. Like I think about 80% of everybody who can run a half marathon can run a full marathon. It's just a matter of yeah, mind, I guess. Like I failed there as well, don't get me wrong, but I want to try again.
I understand. Well, Yannik, that's pretty much all the questions I had. I know we covered a lot. Was there something you wanted to talk about that we didn't get to, or did you have some questions for me?
Um, I I do actually have a question for you. Like if you could choose to go to any celestial body in our solar system, like not taking in account travel times, like 6 years or what to the outer solar system, like just being there in an instant with a spacesuit, where would you go and why?
Yeah. Um, well, can I only do that one time, or can I do that multiple times? Because
I mean, you can get back too, like you can come home, but
because
if you only had one celestial body to choose, like a moon or a different planet, which one would it be?
right. Um, my first answer is going to be like around Jupiter because you have such an interesting collection of worlds that
Yeah,
are all just kind of like right there.
yeah.
But if you take out the cost of the travel time, then the benefit isn't quite there for choosing Jupiter. So where to go to? Um, Goodness, I really don't have a favorite place in the universe. I kind of always thought it'd be cool to be on the moon and look at the Earth.
Yeah,
I think that would probably be it.
that would be a pretty decent profile picture, like taking a selfie with your spacesuit with the background.
Exactly. And hopefully people could actually see my face in the.
Yeah, reflections and different shades of glass, and yeah, could be kind of difficult actually.
Hmm. Maybe we'll do it during the dark phase, which would be the best time because you have like the Earth lit up behind you, and
Yeah,
um,
could probably look kind of creepy, like when your phone is your only source of light and it sort of emits a flash, so you can actually see your face. So you're basically standing in absolute darkness. Your face is lit, and Earth is a small point in the far background.
you're like a silhouette against the Earth.
Yeah, yeah, basically. only your face surrounded by absolute darkness as far as the eye can see.
Uh, I think it'd be cool to play like soccer on the moon or
Oh
tennis
yeah,
or something. Um,
yeah, yeah,
it'd be interesting to see how the game has to change. Like, would you need more massive soccer balls or more massive tennis balls to make it playable,
yeah.
or do you just make the court like gigantic?
That's
And
actually that's actually something I thought about for competitive sport in the far future. Like I think competitive sport needs to be played in 1G. So like we can't compare high or long jump from Mars to Earth. Like you need actually to be able to perform those feats in 1G. Otherwise, don't count or it gets counted separately. Like I imagine, wasn't there an Apollo astronaut, an Apollo 16 or something, who brought along a golf ball and hit it with a flag extension? That could probably fly pretty damn far. Like you hit that thing at just the right point and there's no air resistance, it could just go and go and go.
I wonder if it's physically possible for an astronaut to put in an orbit.
Yeah, yeah. Like the bullet from For All Mankind, where the Marines fire in the distance and they
Oh,
ask themselves, will it actually come back around? Like, will it hit me in my own back? I mean, technically, it should be possible, right? If you stand on a mountain or something and throw the ball fast enough in one direction, the gravity field of the moon doesn't deorbit it within one orbit because it's so unstable compared to other celestial bodies. Like, I guess it could remain in orbit for a little while. Who
hmm.
knows? But maybe we find out one day. Hopefully, someone builds like some sort of tennis ball cannon and actually shoots something in moon orbit.
I was, we have paper airplane contest where people
Yeah,
fold out a piece of paper and turn an airplane and throw it. But I just imagine like a group of school children on the moon, and they would have like, the mini satellite contest where they just go
yeah.
outside and throw their satellites into orbit.
Honestly, like that has to be the most exciting activity on the International Space Station. Like when they deploy a microsatellite by literally throwing it out of the airlock. That has to be one of the most fun things you can do in microgravity. Like putting something into a different orbit with sheer power of muscles, yeeting it away.
I know they're like, that's a wrong trajectory.
Yeah, we'll catch it on the next orbit. Don't worry. Like
Yes,
stretching your hand out to grab it again.
indeed, indeed.
Oh,
Well, Yannik, thank you so much for your time, and I hope you have a good rest of your day. And
thank
um,
you. You as well. Like, what time zone are you actually calling me from?
I'm in the central United States time zone, so it's like 8:49 in the morning here. So just at the
Okay.
very beginning of the day.
Yeah, okay. So I wish you a nice rest of the day. Spend your weekend time well, and I guess let's find out if we see each other again one time.
Absolutely. And I hear, like, here in the US, we talk about crossing fingers, but somebody
Mhm.
told me that in Germany, it's pressing thumbs. Is that right?
Yeah, I guess there's a lot of different saying for those things like twisting my hair out about it or uh, leaning too far out of the window. Or, there are a lot of sayings like that in the German language. Don't ask me why. Like, there's a lot of them, I think.
Well, that's awesome. Yes, I hope we meet sometime. If you're ever in Houston, give me a call.
I definitely will. Until then,
Bye
see
bye.
you. Ciao.